Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one.
An old clock stopped at 8:15 in the morning points to the episode of August 6, 1945 in Hiroshima, marking a crucial moment in world history by showing the impact of the atomic explosion, which brought deep consequences for Japan and the world. A plainclothes officer jumps into the pool at the Monson Motor Lodge to interrupt an integration protest on June 18, 1964 in Florida. The peaceful protest against racial segregation brought together black and white activists, becoming a decisive landmark for civil rights in the United States. The survivor of a concentration camp, living in a children's institution in Poland in 1948, illustrates a house as a symbol of hope. This moment reflects the difficult childhood of someone trying to regain a normal life after the trauma of the conflict, marking a step in emotional rebuilding after the war. The Soviet response to the Prague Spring in 1968 marked an attempt to maintain control over reforms seeking greater autonomy. The moment led to the entry of troops and military vehicles, symbolizing the reform movement's early resistance to intervention and affecting European history. During the early 20th century in England, patient treatment in specialized institutions still used limited methods, such as separation and confinement, reflecting the narrow understanding of these conditions at the time. These practices influenced policies and later advances in patient care. The meeting between Pope John Paul II and Mehmet Aja, linked to the 1981 attack, symbolizes a complex reconciliation after the incident that shocked the world and revealed political and religious tensions. This meeting highlighted the importance of forgiveness and peace in times of conflict. A Berlin avenue after World War II reveals the impact of the conflict, with damaged buildings, empty streets, and a partly cloudy sky. This scene symbolizes the major transformation of the German capital in 1945, marking the end of a turbulent period and the need for rebuilding in European history. A mother carries her child in a Spitalfields alley in 1903, revealing the difficult social conditions faced by residents on the edges of London. The documentary record exposes the hardship of one of the British capital's most disadvantaged areas in the early 20th century. The presence of a war veteran selling matches on the streets of Canterbury points to the period when soldiers returned from World War I, an experience that deeply marked 20th century history. The aged photograph captures a moment of social hardship and the memory of conflicts that shaped the British nation. During World War I, soldiers used armor and protective equipment that marked technological and strategic advances in armed combat. These devices contributed to tactical changes, reflecting the intensity and length of the conflict that reshaped Europe's political landscape. Celebrating victory in World War II, soldiers like Lewis Nixon marked the moment with drinks collected from the home of Hermann Goering, an important leader of the German regime. This acquisition symbolized the taking of goods from the government of the time and marked the Allied victory in May 1945. When American troops occupied Japan after its defeat in World War II in 1945, support and reconstruction actions gained importance, symbolized by simple gestures like sharing chocolate. These actions helped improve relations between soldiers and civilians, marking the beginning of a new era of cooperation. Empress Alexandra Fedorovna, beside her daughters, symbolizes the final phase of the Russian monarchy, already weakened before the 1917 revolution. Her elegant posture represents the luxury of a traditional court, whose collapse marked the end of an imperial era and the start of radical political change. In the 1930s, the economic crisis deepened poverty, leading families to live in abandoned vehicles, such as a Ford adapted as a home, seen in this portrait. This situation showed the need for social policies and the rise of assistance programs in the United States. Harlem residents in 1948 wear elegant clothes and striking hairstyles on a street lined with tall buildings and distinctive architecture. The scene reveals a vibrant New York neighborhood that, at the time, was experiencing the growth of African American culture, strengthening its identity and resilience during this period of social change. In the major event that happened in Johnstown in 1889, a house was torn from its foundation by a flood of enormous force, causing a tree to go through a window. This episode showed the vulnerability of communities to flooding and pushed improvements in prevention planning and dam engineering in the region. The image shows Ethiopian peasants in simple clothing, saluting a poster of Benito Mussolini, a symbol of the Italian government at the time, during the rise of authoritarian movements in Europe. This moment of public support reflected the influence of those political currents across the continent. Moving along snowy trails, men in period clothing head toward Dawson City in 1898, in a cold region marked by mountainous terrain and mining activity. The gold rush drove territorial expansion and strengthened the symbol of the search for wealth at the time. The image captures a moment in Moscow in 1991, when the city faced deep changes after the end of the Soviet era. The transition marked the beginning of a new market economy and greater openness to the world, shaping everyday life, as in the scene of a man calling a taxi on the old garden ring. The presence of canvas tents and teepees points to the traditional life of native peoples in Oklahoma in the early 20th century, when the region was still indigenous territory, not yet incorporated into the United States. This culture resisted change after repeated processes of territorial removal. In the late 19th century, United States territorial expansion drove the formation of settlements around rivers, such as the Canadian River in Oklahoma. Simple establishments like the Sandbar Saloon served as meeting places and reflected the temporary life of pioneer and mining populations seeking opportunity on the frontier. During this period in the late 1900s, California emerged as a center of innovation and culture, reflecting rapid urban and social change. The presence of a prison card points to stronger laws and increased public safety, events that marked the period and influenced the state's development. In 1961, Al Pacino, still young, went through a police incident that marked an early phase of his path. The black and white photo shows his 1960s look, highlighting the actor's early period before he earned his place in film, reflecting the challenges faced at the beginning of his career. Workers in white lab coats work in a scientific facility in the early 1970s, in a setting with advanced technology for the time, reflecting United States government investment in energy development and strategic research during the Cold War, strengthening Los Alamos' role in technological innovation. The traditional practice of cupping therapy, common in Finnish folk medicine, was performed in sauna settings, reflecting the search for natural healing methods. During the 1930s, this method gained recognition and became part of traditional wellness treatments in Finland, influencing local health practices. During World War II in 1941, women wearing dresses and hairstyles typical of the time painted stockings on their legs because of shortages caused by the global conflict. This practice shows the effort to adapt to the lack of essential materials at the time. The Panama Canal project, completed in 1914, transformed global exchange by making ocean-to-ocean navigation easier. In 1922, this infrastructure still appeared massive, with retaining walls and visible excavations, marking an important technological advance in hydraulic engineering at the time. A boy in traditional clothing, possibly the young Dalai Lama, at 2 years old, sits in a prayer room with wooden furniture and a religious image in the background. This moment reflects the importance of Buddhist tradition in Tibetan culture, which throughout the 20th century strengthened the role of Tibet's spiritual leader. The photo shows Albert Einstein sitting for a bust by Arthur Lowenthal in Berlin in the 1930s, reflecting the moment when physics was advancing and science was becoming firmly established in Germany. This phase revealed Einstein's talent and helped bring international recognition to his work. The image of Einstein playing the violin in 1941 reflects his passion for music and a moment of inner reflection. During this period, he was recognized not only for his scientific theories, but also for his connection to art, which influenced his creativity and thinking. The American invention from 1931 shows a portable radio mounted on a straw hat, with visible components reflecting the technological progress of the time. This innovation made news and entertainment broadcasting easier, marking an important step in making mobile communication more accessible. During the second half of the 19th century, a back massage machine, innovative for its time, was designed by Gustav Zander, a pioneer in exercise technology. This invention, used indoors and possibly displayed in international museums, reflects advances in health and wellness. At the Port of London in 1890, the scene reveals a period of intense technological transition, with large sailing vessels beside a visible chain crane. During this period, the United Kingdom strengthened its role as a maritime power, driving international trade and colonial expansion. The wooden maiden vessel, a symbol of a period of change, was adapted in 1890 to serve as a floating museum, representing the shift from a floating prison to a historical exhibition. This reinvention highlights the importance of preserving maritime memories in the 19th century. The records room at Scotland Yard in England stores paper documents organized on large shelves, reflecting police routine in the 1920s. These files were essential for investigations before computers arrived, marking an advance in information management. Athletes practiced sport, shooting with old-style pistols in Stockholm in 1912, a time marked by the rise of modern sports and the development of international rules. This competition shows the evolution of firearms and the growth of Olympic sport. Firefighters from a private brigade in dark uniforms with tall hats ride an old motorcycle on their way to a competition in 1925. This era marked the consolidation of professional fire departments, influencing the organization of events that promoted skills and teamwork among crews. During a walk for a charity event at the Elma Lewis School of Fine Arts in Boston in 1973, people gathered to support cultural causes, reinforcing the growth of the civil rights movement and the appreciation of African American culture. These actions marked the strengthening of racial identity during the decade. While occupying his position, President John F. Kennedy leans over the table in a room with curtains decorated with stars, reflecting the challenges of the early 1960s. This era was marked by Cold War developments and crisis management, such as the Bay of Pigs, showing the complexity of the loneliest office. Audrey Hepburn's presence on a Rome street in 1968 reveals the cultural energy of that period, marked by elegant fashion, classic cars, and historic architecture. These features reinforce Rome's importance as a center of art, fashion, and history, influencing generations to this day. Olivia Newton. John appears during the filming of her special program in California in March 1980, marking an important moment in her career. Her appearance helped strengthen her international success and popularized 1980s pop culture, influencing future generations. The cultural energy of Los Angeles in 1967 helped drive the hippie scene, where young people sought freedom of expression through colorful clothing, accessories, and makeup. This social and visual revolution marked a deep shift in customs, reflecting the era's spirit of resistance and innovation. Sylvia Simpson's performance in the play Espresso Bongo reveals the glamour and style of the 1950s and 1960s, periods marked by strong theater production in the United Kingdom. This era established theater as an important cultural expression, influencing generations and reflecting social change. Jenny Key, an Australian fashion designer, wears a Pakistani dress in London, showing the impact of cultural exchange on fashion. Her presence highlighted the influence of natural fabrics and global trends in the 1960s, a key period of experimentation and wider access to fashion. In 1975, David Bowie shows his signature style with period clothing, an afro hairstyle, and thick framed glasses while appearing beside Ola Hudson, the mother of musician Slash. The presence of sound equipment and wooden shelves suggests a classic indoor setting, reflecting the fashion and look of the decade. In the 1960s, Patty Boyd's iconic style reflected the impact of youth culture and the fashion revolution of that era, marked by modernist clothing, elaborate hairstyles, and striking accessories that influenced global trends. Her presence symbolized the connection between music, fashion, and counterculture. The image points to the 1930s, a time marked by the development of more effective hunting firearms and the use of camouflage clothing. The old car indicates a transition period of vehicles with rounded designs, while the license plate reinforces the connection to Pennsylvania. The presence of a girl with shoulder-length dark hair in New York City during the summer of 1958 reflects a moment of social change in the 1950s, when economic growth drove cultural shifts, and the urban lifestyle gained attention in the media. Diane Kruger's presence on a stage with heavy curtains, a wooden panel in the background, and old decorations reveals a classic performance scene. In this setting, the atmosphere recalls a vintage theater, standing out through soft lighting and details from the past, showing the importance of traditional cultural events in entertainment history. Charlie Chaplin, a pioneer of silent film, won over the world with comedies that revolutionized the art of visual storytelling. His performance in 1919 in an outdoor setting marked a period of change in the film industry, strengthening his role as a cultural icon and influencing future generations. At the height of the 1950s, the presence of stars like Ava Gardner and Gregory Peck reflected Hollywood's golden age, marked by productions that established cinema as one of the greatest cultural industries. This phase was crucial in setting standards of glamour and storytelling that still endure today. Actress Angie Dickinson and Michael Caine appear in a scene from a 1960s film, a context that marked advances in pop culture in the British film industry. This era stood out for the growing recognition of spy cinema and Hollywood glamour, influencing styles and storylines. During the 1960s, Claudia Cardinale stood out in European cinema, symbolizing the elegance of that decade of cultural transition. Her presence marked a moment of change in the film industry, reflecting the shifting styles and social values of the time. Elizabeth Taylor, at 17 years old, appears in a casual 1949 scene, caring for her Cocker Spaniel Amy in a simple tiled setting. This stage of the actress's youth shows how celebrities began their public lives, surrounded by personal moments influencing Hollywood culture. Britt Ekland, in 1968, wore a long-sleeved floral dress and had shoulder-length orange hair reflecting the style of the time. The artificial lighting, lights, and stars in the background created a decorative setting typical of that period, marked by innovation and fashion. Singer Emmylou Harris, a standout in the 1970s music scene, won over European audiences when she took the stage at the Country Music Festival in London in 1975. Her performance marked the growing international reach of the genre and reflected the impact of country music on the pop culture of the time. Inside a rehearsal room or musical setting, a woman with styled hair typical of the 1950s performs a piece on a grand piano while men in formal clothing accompany her during an important moment in the music scene of the time, marking progress in women's presence in jazz. During the production of Spellbound in 1945, Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck appear in elegant clothing and stylish hairstyles of the decade, in a scene where soft lighting enhances the mood of suspense. This work marked an advance in psychological cinema, influencing generations. At the turn of the 1950s, Hollywood strengthened its reputation as the center of world cinema, boosting careers in celebrities like Dorothy Malone, whose work in 1958 reinforced the prestige of the film industry and the popularity of on-screen glamour. Actress Veronica Lake, a symbol of 1940s glamour, was a Hollywood star during World War II. Her image, marked by wavy hair and classic makeup, reinforced the role of performers like her in public hope and morale, helping establish stardom during cinema's golden age. Jane Mansfield, a famous actress of the 1950s, walked through New York with her daughter during a time of cultural growth and social change in the United States, marking an era of glamour, fashion shifts, and the rise of color cinema, influencing global trends and youth behavior. The wedding of Fernando Lamas and Arlene Dahl in 1954 reflected the elegance of the time, with formal dresses, hairstyles, and makeup typical of the 1950s. The black and white photo shows party decorations with lights and curtains, highlighting the importance of social events in that decade's culture. A couple walking arm in arm on the sidewalk of an urban street with clothing reflecting 1980s or 1990s styles, in a setting with trees and pavement, suggests a common scene from that period. This era marked the consolidation of cultural and musical movements that influenced later generations. In the 1960s, commercial signs in Arabic and English reveal a Cairo in full transformation, reflecting global influence and urban growth. This era marked Cairo's consolidation as a center of commerce and culture, strengthening its historical importance in the Middle East. The scene reveals a typical 1960s portrait in Staten Island, New York, shown by the classic car, period clothing, and residential architecture in the background. This era marked rapid suburban growth in the United States, reflecting important social and economic changes. The 1899 photograph of Waterloo Place in London captures urban transformation at the end of the 19th century, during a time marked by industrial and social growth. This period drove the city's modernization, with the introduction of vehicles such as carriages and the adoption of typical clothing. The display of old cars at an auto show in the Hotel Astor in New York shows the growth of the automobile industry in the early 20th century. This evolution drove urbanization and economic development, strengthening the role of cars in modern society. Loyalty card campaigns using stamps as shopping incentives appeared in the United States. Between the 1950s and 1970s, Brands like S and H green stamps encouraged consumers to collect stamps for discounts, reflecting innovative marketing strategies at the time. With the arrival of computers using cathode ray tube screens, technological progress changed business settings and offices, highlighting the importance of innovations that made daily tasks easier. This phase marked the beginning of a rapid shift in communication and information management. The portrait highlights the patriotic appeal of wartime campaigns, common during conflicts such as World War II, when national defense campaigns encouraged people to buy war bonds to strengthen military efforts and protect the country's future. Men gathered in front of a wooden structure represent metal smelting activity, common around the late 19th century in the Colorado region of the United States. Silver and gold production in the area boosted local economic growth and marked the development of mining in the state. In the first decades of the 20th century, the expansion of construction boosted the lumber industry, reflected in the image of large stacks of wood drying in a Seattle yard around 1919. This phase marked economic modernization and urban growth in the northwestern United States. In the 1930s, dealerships like this one in Missouri displayed luxury cars with elegant designs that were advanced for the time, reflecting the growth of the auto industry that boosted the economy and changed urban transportation. The architecture and setting reinforced the exclusivity of the business. The photograph reveals an old vehicle from 1916 marked by wooden wheels with metal spokes and an enclosed upper body, reflecting the style of city streets at the time. The formally dressed driver with a hat reinforces the formality and urban progress of cities with already developed architecture. In the 1920s, car camping became popular among families seeking outdoor leisure, using period cars with wooden wheels and canvas covers. This practice reflected the growth of domestic tourism before modern technologies became widespread. The return of seaside leisure with vintage swimsuits highlights the 1950s, when economic growth made beaches more accessible, and this clothing style became popular. Classic cars and period architecture reinforced the setting of a society that valued rest and mass culture. In the history of photography, producing black and white images with old quality techniques marked progress in capturing memories, especially before color photography was developed. Photos like this show period clothing and hairstyles, bringing back the daily life of a society that valued simplicity and classic records. The elegance of a couple from past decades reflects the style of the time, marked by well-kept clothing, wide hats, and sharp suits. Their connection is shown by the touch of their hands, while the urban setting of tall buildings reinforces the mood of a rising society seeking both modernity and tradition. The sepia-tone photograph from 1890 reveals two men with horn-shaped mustaches wearing formal jackets, bow ties, and high-collar shirts, reflecting late 19th century fashion. These images help us understand the appearance of society during that period. A woman's clothing style in the 1920s, with a fur hat and luxurious dress, reflects an era of fast cultural and social change, shaped by the search for modernity after World War I. This phase pushed changes in fashion, women's roles, and personal freedom while keeping the elegance of the time alive. The presence of Christmas elements, together with the period clothing of a woman from the 1950s or 1960s, reveals a moment of celebration that marked 20th century holiday traditions. These occasions reinforce the importance of the Christmas spirit in society and culture at the time. In the early 20th century, children played on wooden mechanical horses, a symbol of innovation in children's entertainment. The 1902 photograph shows a seated boy wearing period clothing in a typical outdoor play scene that followed the growth of recreational technologies. A man, a woman, and a child cross a cobblestone street carrying a wheelbarrow with wooden wheels. The scene reveals a time before motor vehicles, marked by old clothing and objects that suggest a small-scale urban area, with vegetation in the background. In the 19th century, portraits like this marked the period when photography was beginning to become popular, showing the value of family memory. The setting with old furniture reinforces the importance of preserving traditions and visual records in an era of cultural and technological change. In the 19th century, family portraits with formal clothing and classic hairstyles reveal the importance of photography as a symbol of status and tradition in Europe and Brazil, where records preserve the memory of generations marking a time of social change and the recognition of photography as a form of expression and documentation. Men wearing heavy wool clothing, caps, and winter boots in a snowy landscape point back to the last century, a time of economic hardship and technological advances that changed society. These old photos capture historical moments of resilience and adaptation. On the street, boxed public telephones with cables and monitors typical of the time define the scene. Old vans with front engines in early 1980s fashion reveal an everyday moment of technological transition that changed public communication and transportation in Brazil. In the early 1940s, Norma Jean Dougherty, at 17 years old, appears with a hairstyle and clothing typical of the time, beside a river or lake, near wooden structures and a columned building in the distance, reflecting the social and cultural setting of the United States during World War II. In the early 20th century, small communities in West Texas had figures like Judge Roy Bean, known for administering justice in an informal and popular way. His courtroom, which also worked as a bar, symbolized the autonomy and spirit of a time marked by frontier life and rough justice. The photo production presents Booby Shaw in classic-style intimate clothing, with short curly hair, showing the portrait style of the 1950s. The soft lighting and setting with Christmas details in the background reflect a mix of tradition and glamour, marking a moment of sophisticated style.